Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Photography Masterclass with your host. That's me, Terry White. I am very happy. I think this is class number 4. So again, if you're just joining me for the first time, you can go back and watch the replays. You can get all caught up. They are all available to watch on your own time whenever you need. And of course, we're live here every Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. So for those of you who are watching, thanks for being here live. And for those of you who are watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. Those numbers matter to me. I love it. But today we're going to be taking a look at, we're just going to continue down the path of, we did organization, we did importing, we did a little editing. Now we're going to jump in and really do mobile. We're going to talk about mobile, all the aspects of Lightroom in the cloud. We're going to talk about all the aspects of where your pictures really are. We're going to talk about, even if you're in Classic, what can you do with Lightroom mobile, and just try and cover as much as I possibly can. So with that said, again, thanks for being here. I see Danny, Victoria, Eric, Valdir, Valentes, welcome. I see you guys on Behance. And again, if you're watching this, I may not catch it, but if you're watching this on YouTube, you're missing out on the interaction, the comments, because I'm only looking at the Behance chat. So if you're on YouTube watching, great, you can hang out and watch. But if you really want to interact, if you really want to see what people are saying, head over to behance.net/live, and you should see it right there in the main window. If not, just click on photography, you'll see it there. It should be in the main window. All right, so with that said, again, thanks for being here. Thanks everyone for attending all the previous ones. I'm going to dive right in. We're going to look at where we kind of just, again, pick up right where we left off. I'm not going to do a recap because you can go back and watch. But I'm going to pick up right where we left off, and we're going to switch catalogs because it's that time. It's time to switch catalogs. And what you'll see what I mean by that in just a minute. Okay, so let me jump over to the computer so you guys can see what I'm doing. As you can see, I have no Lightroom open. I've just got my desktop here, and that is a picture from Antelope Canyon that I took like a decade ago now. So we're not going to use that, but we're going to go ahead and launch Lightroom Classic. Now, like I said, I'm going to start off in Classic just to get the Classic people on board. Then we're going to do the rest, the whole thing, the bulk of it on the new Lightroom cloud-based version. And of course, that's the one that ties in the most with mobile. All right, so let me go ahead and launch Classic just so I can get you the Classic users caught up with where they need to be, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so you might remember last we left off, we were doing some edits for the Instacart shoot, and we started this catalog on day 1. It's now got 270 photos in it, but this is obviously not my Terry White main catalog that I use every single day. This is the catalog that I started 4 weeks ago, or I guess it'll be 4 weeks ago now. So this is the one I started at the beginning of February for the Masterclass. Now, when you are a Classic user and you want to interact with Lightroom Mobile, you can, but it is going to be one catalog at a time. Now, what I mean by that is we started this catalog from scratch. We imported, organized, did everything. And this is just a single catalog of 270 images, and we can keep growing this and growing this and growing this. Back when Lightroom first started, you could actually have, and you still can, multiple catalogs. You could have one for work, one for play, one for family, one for vacations, one for each client. And that would have been the workflow years ago. But the problem with that workflow today is that, well, years ago you did it because you wanted to keep your catalog smaller so they performed better. But over the years, Lightroom's performance has gained significantly. So it's no longer a performance need to keep the catalogs all separate. And also, you can only, this is the biggest reason, you can only sync one catalog to Lightroom Mobile. One. So I consolidated, I had, I think, 3 or 4 catalogs back in the day. I consolidated them all down to one main catalog that I've used for years with no issues, and that's the one that I sync. So if you were just getting started and you had never used Lightroom Mobile with Lightroom Classic, then you would go up here to whatever this says. It either says Lightroom or it says your name, whatever it is. And if you customize it, it says whatever you've done. And when you click on it, it's a menu. And you'll notice that there's a start button. And what that start button does is it will let me start Lightroom Mobile. It'll let me start syncing. So right now it's off because it's turned on my main catalog. If I turn it on here, I'll lose all those photos that were synced with the other catalog. So they would just disappear out of the cloud. It would now replace them with these. I don't want that to happen, so I'm not going to click start. But just for users that hadn't started it yet, that's what you would do. Now, even if you do click start and you start syncing, that does not sync anything immediately. It just turns on the feature. Once you turn it on, then next to all of your collections, which I won't have here because I haven't turned it on, but next to all your collections would be a little box for you to click to sync particular collections. So I love the fact that Lightroom Classic lets you pick and choose which collections you want to sync to the cloud. And you do get that when you turn it on. So I'm going to go ahead now. It is time to move over to my main catalog. And Davidson, I'll answer it in just a second. I don't really have an answer, but I'll answer it in just a second. I'll move over to the main catalog and we'll answer Davidson's question. All right, so let's go ahead and go to File, Open Recent. It's going to let me choose between all the various catalogs I've played with and demoed in the past. And I'm going to switch over to my main TWP catalog. All right, so now this kind of ties in a little bit to Davidson's question. It's not the answer I'm going to give once we get over to the other catalog, but you notice that when I now am getting ready to close this catalog, or if I were to just quit Lightroom, it's asking me, do you want to make a backup copy of your catalog? You should absolutely do that, at least on a weekly basis. So mine is set to once a week. Make a copy of this catalog. You can choose where it puts it. Best to probably put it at least on an external drive or something that's syncing to the cloud like Dropbox or whatever. So that way your catalog can be retrieved in case your hard drive crashes. But the more important thing for Davidson's question is there's a test for integrity before backing up. And what that test does is it checks the catalog to resolve on problems like he's having unexpected error opening the catalog. Now, unfortunately, if you're having an error now, it's probably too late to do this. But that might be a tech support kind of thing where you have to go to tech support and get that resolved. But doing this check before you quit, letting it do the backup, and doing this will always keep the catalog in check to make sure it doesn't, a problem that may have started small doesn't evolve into a problem where you can't actually open the catalog later. So I always leave that checked. I'm going to skip it this time because this catalog really doesn't matter. It's going to close that catalog and open up my main Terry White TWP, Terry White Photography catalog. Okay. And it's loading, and it's got lots of photos. And I was messing with some photos today for a colleague that's retiring, so that's why I scrolled all the way down there. And here's my catalog, and this is the catalog I use all the time. This is my real catalog of 244,205 photos. So this is my ever-growing, all the things I shoot end up in this catalog if they're worth keeping at one point or another. All right, so with that said, special guest in the house, Jason Levine is in the chat. I see people saying, hi, Jason. Hi, Jason. There's Jason Levine. Good morning. How are you? Jason's going to be on later doing a masterclass for video and audio, or audio and video. So if you're into, by the way, Friday is the masterclass day. So if you're interested in photography, I kick things off. You're interested in Photoshop and design, Paul Tranny is up soon after me. There's like a challenge, but then he's up. Then I believe it goes to Jason, and then it goes to Howard, who's doing Adobe XD. So you can learn photography, Photoshop and design, audio, video, and Adobe XD for UX UI design, all on the same day every week, Fridays. All right, and again, if you head to behance.net/live, you can see the schedule. You can see who's coming up next in the what's up coming up next section. You can set a reminder and all that. All right, but Jason's in the house. Thanks, Jason, for being here. Next up. All right, so now we got the catalog open, and if I were to go look at my thingy here, it's not saying that I want to start it. I can pause it, but it's already started. It's already syncing photos. Now, if I go down to the collection area and I look at the collections, I can see these little sync symbols next to these collections. Some of them have them, some of them don't. The ones that don't are the ones that aren't syncing with Lightroom Classic. The ones that have it are the ones that are. So you pick and choose which collections will sync. Now, with that said, let me explain a couple of things about that, because there are some confusions, some misconceptions, some things that people just don't get about what's the difference between syncing from Classic versus syncing from the new Lightroom. So let's cover that and get that out of the way now once and for all, and then we can move on. So Lightroom, since Lightroom Mobile first came out, and there was no Lightroom Cloud desktop version, could always do this. They enabled this feature years ago when they first came out with an iPhone version and then an iPad version, and now, of course, an Android version. And all it did, and all it still does to this day, is it syncs what's called a smart preview. And I talked about smart previews in the past. Hey, Jamie Feldman. Smart previews aren't the full resolution of the file. It's a smaller preview size of 2540 pixels on the longest edge. So if it's a landscape this way, if it's a portrait this way, up to that size. And it is not really backing up your photos. So just because I sync them doesn't mean that if this hard drive crashes and I lose these photos, that I can say, oh, they've been synced, I'm okay. That's what the other version of Lightroom does. This version is saying, I'm going to allow you to put whatever photos you want on mobile or in the cloud throughout the ecosystem so that you can see them, so that you can edit them in Lightroom, on your phone, on your tablet, on the web, I'll just say those three for now. And when you come back to your desktop, anything you've done will have applied to those photos. So for example, let's see if I can do this live for you. All right, I've got Lightroom Classic open right now, and I'm looking at my all photos. But some of these have already been synced because some of these came over from Lightroom Mobile. We'll talk about that in a minute. And some of these came over from collections in Lightroom Classic. Doesn't matter where they came from, they're here. All right, so if I were to, and I'm holding my iPad Pro right now. If I were to bring over my iPad Pro so you can see it, this is it. So you see those same photos, and if I were to go to one of these photos, like this one that my buddy Sean took of me while I was teaching my class, and I would say, well, the temperature's a little warm for me for this photo. It's like a little too golden for the light. I could go in to my color. I could go to my white balance eyedropper. I could adjust the white balance and maybe make it a little warmer. Oh, hang on, I didn't say okay. There we go. Maybe make it a little warmer because that's a little too cool. And maybe get something like that. Okay. Now, as long as I'm editing, nothing's happening, like I'm just editing, it won't start syncing till I get out of the editing mode. So in other words, I go back to the grid. Now I see in the cloud, actually it probably already finished. Yep, synced and backed up. So it is synced those metadata changes of me moving that slider or me sampling the white balance to the cloud because the photo's already there. It doesn't have to sync the photo again. It just needs to sync the edit. Now that it's synced the edit, if I were to go back and look at it over here, let's see, which one was that? Yes, this one. It's already done it. So this is on the desktop. It's already made the change. It's already adjusted the white balance. I could tell it's not as beige as it was. So that was the whole, reason why people wanted to do this, so they wouldn't be tied to a computer. They could do things on their phone, they could do things on their tablet, and even if they did, it would replicate or sync back to the desktop as quickly as your internet connection will allow. The photo's already synced, doesn't have to sync the photo anymore, it just syncs what you've done to it. All right, let's see. Winans asking, hey Terry, your photos seem to be on a server. Is the server outside your house? No, it's actually about 30 feet under me in a closet. So no, it's not a server in the cloud. It's actually a server physically in the house. All right, and it's because I don't have room on any one hard drive, so I run a file server with expandable storage and so forth and so on. All right, back to our story. So we've got we now know that we know how to turn it on in Classic. We know that we can check individual collections. We know that those will sync, and they will only sync smart previews from Classic. And that's where we left off. And we know that we edit on mobile. The edit will make its way to the desktop eventually. All right, so far so good. Now, what's next? Well, what's next is, again, understanding what got synced and from where. Okay, so this is I should make a diagram for this. From Classic, if you're starting out, so for example, this picture of Sean that I took at WPPI in Vegas earlier this week. If I look at this picture of Sean, let's go to the original actually. If I look at this picture of Sean, it's a raw file. It's 4024 by 6048 pixels. It's high resolution. It was shot with my mirrorless Nikon Z6. Okay. That picture, this photo, was imported into Classic. I had my laptop with me. I was teaching a class. I shot tethered. Click, click, click. We're going to do that later, or not today, but we're going to do that in the class as well. The photos came in, and they're on the hard drive of that laptop, and I put them in a collection called Sean. If we go down to Sean's collection, I put them in a collection called Sean Lee. There it is. And Sean Lee's collection, I clicked the little box so it would sync them. So what's actually available on my iPad and my phone is that Sean Lee album, because on the other Lightroom, they're called albums. Here they're called collections. But it's not that full resolution. It's not that 4,000 by 6,000. It's 2540 by whatever. It's never going to show you that anyway, but it's just know it's not the full size file. If I go and edit that Sean photo, it will apply the edit here to the raw file, to the actual metadata of this file. So that's what happens when you go from Classic up to the cloud down to your devices. But this shot of me, Sean took with his iPhone. He was sitting in the front row. He shot it with his iPhone. He sent it to me, and I was on my phone, and I imported it into Lightroom on my phone. So what that gave me was whatever resolution was that I got from my phone. So if I had taken a picture with my phone, and my phone shoots 12 megapixels, that 12 megapixel mobile photo will get uploaded to the cloud and back down to Lightroom Classic as a 12 megapixel photo. So from Classic up, smart previews. From anything else up, the full resolution, and down to Classic. That's the best way to explain it. So Classic does not have the ability to upload full resolution files to Lightroom Mobile, period. Everything else does. So if you shoot it on your phone, if you plug in a card reader on your iPad, if you bring in DSLR or mirrorless shots, if you shoot with a high resolution Samsung, if you shoot with a high resolution iPhone 11 Pro, all of those full resolution files shot on your mobile devices will be uploaded in their full glory and then synced back down if you're using Classic. Otherwise, they're in the cloud and they are backed up. Okay, so let's talk about storage concerns. Because you're a Lightroom, if you are a Lightroom Classic user, because you're a Lightroom Classic user, you're still grandfathered in to be able to sync an unlimited number of smart previews. So I could literally sync all 244,000 photos to the cloud if I wanted to. Smart previews from this catalog. I don't, because I don't need them all, but I could. However, if you're syncing originals, because remember, if we shot from the mirrorless camera and we brought it into the phone, we shot from, or the iPad and we shot from the phone, full resolution, now you're limited to the storage plan that you paid for. So if you're only paying the $9.99 a month for Classic and Photoshop, then you only have 20 gigabytes, which isn't a lot for originals. It's unlimited smart previews, but not a lot for originals. If you're on the other $9.99 plan or greater, and you got the 1 terabyte of space, well, 1 terabyte speaks for itself. You have 1 terabyte of space for originals. That's a ton of JPEGs. That's tens of thousands of JPEGs, and it's not as many raw files. So you have to be careful what you're syncing. And of course, you can buy more storage, but it will tell you when you go up here how much storage you actually have. Now, I have I haven't even used a terabyte yet. I've used 1/3 of a terabyte, but I got a 5 terabyte plan because I work here. All right. Anyway, but most of you will either see 1 terabyte up here, one or one something, and you will see, or you'll see 20 gigabyte, which isn't a lot. So it depends on the plan you have as to what your storage will be. And again, that only applies to the full resolution originals. It does not apply to your smart previews. Okay. Next and last, before we leave Classic. Actually, a couple things before we leave Classic. There are no checkboxes next to folders. You can't sync a folder. You can only sync a collection. So when I photographed from this conference, let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, here it is. When I did my masterclass earlier this week at the conference, I created a folder for the masterclass, and I created a folder for each person, each subject. So there's the Abby folder of 16 photos, and there's the Sean Lee folder of 7 photos. And those, when I shot them, were not synced. They didn't get synced until I made an Abby collection and put her photos in them. And I made a Sean collection and put his photos in them. That's what made them sync, because I put them in a collection and then checked the box. So someone's asking, is this the cloud-based Lightroom? Is the cloud-based Lightroom the future? Well, I can't predict the future. I wish I could. Otherwise, I'd probably be retired if I could. I would say that Lightroom, I would just put it this way. Lightroom Classic certainly has a lot of life left in it because it has like hundreds of features that aren't in the cloud-based version. But I would say that if Adobe could magically one day get to one version that satisfies everybody and it would be cloud-based, then that would be a nice feature to have. But we're a long ways away from that right now. So it's just not something I worry about. I'm a Classic user. It's the one I use for my photography every day. But I'm also a mobile user, so I have to not worry about, but use the cloud version as well. How can I consolidate all my catalogs into one that would sync? That would be a good question, and I'm glad you asked it. So under the File menu, well, first of all, pick a catalog that's going to be the main one. So either pick one of the existing ones you have, or create a new one, whatever you want, and say, okay, this is going to be the one I'm going to sync. This is one I'm going to go up to the menu under. I'm going to turn on syncing. But now I have 4 other catalogs I need to get into this one. So under the File menu of Classic, you have the ability to import from another catalog. So pick your main catalog and then import all the images you want from all the other catalogs. And yes, it will bring over the collections. Yes, it will bring over the edits. Yes, it will bring over the organization. It will bring over everything when you import from a catalog this way. And then you end up with, you can toss the other catalogs at some point whenever you're sure and you don't need them anymore, because now you'll have the one with everything referenced in it. So that's how you get to one that you can sync. And that's how I did it years ago. That's how I consolidated 3 or 4 down to 1. Okay. Last but not least, and then we'll head over to, we'll do a lot more on the mobile devices. We're going to actually use the camera. We're going to do a lot of things here real quick. Last couple things in your preferences, because this is an important preference to know about. When you go to your preferences in Classic, okay, how could you manage a storage of only 390 gigabytes? Okay, so that's so Winan's asking a question because it sounds like you're confused. So let me be clear again. He asked the question, how can I be managing 244,000 pictures if my cloud storage is only used up 390 gigabytes? Because A, I did not sync all 244,000. I've only synced 46,000 or 48,425. And because most of those came from Classic, they're small, smart previews. They're not 48,000 raw files or 48,000 full-size JPEGs. That's why they only take up 390 gigabytes. Because Classic can't sync the full resolution. So therefore, and by the way, even if I synced all 244,000, you missed another key point that I mentioned from Classic, it wouldn't take up your storage because they would be smart previews. Smart previews don't go against your storage quota. You have an unlimited amount of smart previews you can sync. So even if I did sync the whole 244,000 from Classic, it would still only be using 390 gigabytes of space, because that 390 gigabytes of space is being used for originals that came from the cloud version of Lightroom or from my mobile devices, or in most cases, both. So smart previews don't take up any space, or they do take up space. They don't take up any space in your quota. So even on a 20 gigabyte plan, I can sync all 244,000 smart previews because it's not going to take up any of that 20 gigs. That's the difference. Okay. Last thing, most important, preferences, and you go to Lightroom Sync. When you go to Lightroom Sync, in your preferences, there's a couple preferences you need to know about. First and foremost, this is probably the most important preference right here. Specify the location of Lightroom's synced photos, and you pick a spot. Like you click on the button and find a spot on whatever drive you want. Because when you do shoot one with your phone, when you do import a DSLR or mirrorless image into your tablet or your phone, and it syncs that up, and you've turned on syncing here, it has to sync it down. Where is it going to put it? That's what you're specifying here. You're telling Lightroom where I want any new images coming from the cloud that sync down in the Classic, where they should go. Last thing here is that if you ever get into a situation where you say, I want to start over, you can delete all sync data and start from scratch. And then you would lose all your check marks, all your, you might even have to turn syncing back on because I think it turns it off. And then you would go and sync your collections one by one again. And that's it. Okay, so 48,000, 413,000 photos synced. And again, the vast majority of those are smart previews that didn't take up any space on the cloud. Can you create smart previews after you've imported or only when you first import? When I first started using Lightroom, I didn't understand the concept of smart previews. Good question. And I'll tell you the answer is yes, but it doesn't matter in this scenario. Because even if let's say you go back and you sync a collection from 4 years ago that you never built any smart previews for. Lightroom builds the smart previews automatically for syncing. So even if you don't build them, it has to, because it has no choice but to build them upon syncing. But to answer your question, can I, just for my own use, for my being away from my computer, can I create them after the fact? Yes, you can. Select your photos that you want to create smart previews for, which, by the way, I don't know that I did create smart previews for this one. Let's see. Yeah, I did. Okay, so this one, these do say original plus smart preview, but had I not, and maybe this one doesn't have one, let's see. Yeah, this one doesn't. Okay, had I not created a smart preview for that photo, which I have not, can I create it after the fact? Yes, you can. You can go up to your library menu at any time for one photo or a million photos that you select. Come down to previews and build smart previews. So you can build them after the fact if you did not build them upon import. And it's going to say, hey, you really want to just build one? Or sure you don't want to build them all? I've already built all the rest. So yes, I do want to build one, just one in this case. And now you see it says original plus smart preview because I built it for that one photo. But yeah, after the fact, you can select a whole collection, a whole folder, whatever you want, and build as many smart previews as you want at any given time. Okay, that's it. That's the classic. I had to explain that for the classic users. Now we're going to move off the classic. We're going to move on to Lightroom, the other Lightroom and Lightroom Mobile. And we're going to take a picture or a couple of pictures and we're going to just go through that whole process. No problem, Mary. Yeah, I build them out because here's the other reason that you have to be able to build them after the fact. When I shoot tethered, there is no checkbox for tethering to build them as you're shooting tethered. I shoot tethered probably 100% of the time in studio. So I have to be able to build them after they've been put in because tethering doesn't allow me to build smart previews as they're coming in. Only when you're importing from a card or from a hard drive do you get that option. Okay, quitting classic. Yes, I want to quit. Do I want to do my backup? I'll skip it this one time because I don't want to waste your time watching a progress bar. But anyway, oh, wait, crap. I forgot to answer that guy's question. Hang on. I showed him the integrity checkbox for the backup. One more thing. I'll just launch it real quick. So his problem was, can I fix a catalog that's having issues? And if it won't open, no. There's nothing I can show you to do. That's a tech support thing. But if you're having a catalog that's giving you problems, like it's slow, it's like not displaying the files properly, it's just giving you weirdness, then the thing you want to do is you want to go up to your file menu and you want to come down to optimize catalog. What that will do is that will do the integrity check. It will get rid of stuff that you don't need. What I mean, stuff like it creates previews you haven't used in a while, stuff that you don't need in that catalog, not photos, stuff you don't need. And then you optimize it and it will just take its time to do it. And it's telling you, if you recently optimized, you can do it again and improve performance. If it's running slow, you haven't optimized it recently, so forth and so on, you can do that. So if you are having a catalog issue, run the optimization. If you can't even open it, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can tell you to do other than maybe try importing it into another catalog or hopefully you have a backup. Okay, quitting classic now, this time for good, for today. Skip this time. Alrighty, now let's go to the other Lightroom. This is the Lightroom Cloud version. This is the one that is on the other plan, the $9.99 a month. And you can, there you go. Same photos we were looking at a minute ago. Same edit already happened on this photo because it is in the cloud. So it's showing me the edit. Same photos of Sean, showing me the file formats they're in. Same photos of Abby from my class and everything else I did from WPPI. Now, let me just check one note here. Okay. Now let's say that I want to take a photo, or I want to use a photo with my phone camera, with my phone. Yes, Eric, for good for today. All right. And William's learning a lot today. Good. That makes my day. That makes me think that what I'm doing is worthwhile. All right. I just want to bring up my phone here so you guys can see it. I don't know if it's still, hang on a minute. My phone went to sleep, so I need to bring it back up again. There it is. Okay, let's bring the phone over so you guys can see it. All right. So here's my iPhone, the one I'm holding in my hand. So if I swipe, it's swiping. You see it's live. And of course, I've got Lightroom, the icon down at the bottom. I can go ahead and launch it. And get out of the camera. If I go to all photos, same edits. So it doesn't matter where I make a change. I'm seeing the same things. But What if I want to shoot something new? I'm out with my phone all the time. My phone is like my 100% of the time camera. Irving, I'll answer that question in just a second. So Irving's asking a tethering question. Let me get through this first. What if I shoot something new? Now, I would love for you to only use the Lightroom camera. I know that's not going to ever be a reality because the camera app that's built into your phone is the fastest one to get to. It's the one that it's your default. It's the one you can swipe up and rewrite in the camera. So you're always going to be using that camera. Lightroom has a built-in camera that gives you more options. It's a little camera icon at the bottom of the window on the bottom right. But I'm going to cover both. So first and foremost, since you are going to always be shooting things with your phone's camera, then there's a setting you should know about. If I get out of all photos and I go up to the little gear icon in the upper right corner and I go to import, there is the ability to automatically import, I'm going to turn on videos as well, to import photos and videos from your camera roll. So in other words, you were out at the park and you were click, 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 click with your iPhone or your Android phone right in the native app. And then you're like, wow, I would love to do some edits. I would love to have those on my desktop. I would love to have those in an album that I've shared with others. I would love to have all of that be in my regular Lightroom. Well, because I've turned those two options on, if I did shoot a video and did shoot a photo with my phone, the next time I launch Lightroom, they're already going to be imported in. I don't have to look for them. I don't have to think about it. It will only import the new ones that it hadn't imported yet, and away we go. Now, I didn't like this feature at first because I take a lot of screenshots with my phone. I'm documenting. I do blogs. I do a lot of stuff, and I didn't want all that screenshot stuff in my Lightroom albums. So the Lightroom team, thank you Lightroom team, gave us a separate toggle for screenshots, which as you can see, I have turned off. I don't need screenshots. I only need photos and videos. So by turning those on, those will import automatically. Now, these do count against your space. So if you only have 20 gigabytes and you import a ton of photos from here, you're going to fill it up instantly, quickly. Like, think about it. This is a 64 gig memory card. So a third less than that is your space. If you're on a 1 terabyte plan, you can shoot all day. But keep in mind that while I did have an unlimited number of smart previews to sync in Classic, I don't have an unlimited number of regular photos to sync from my devices. All right. Now I'm going to get out of this. And let me make sure that setting took. It did. I'm going to get out of this. Okay, so next up. I know that now if I go into all photos, any photo that I took with my phone automatically came in if I took it with the phone's camera. As a matter of fact, those pictures of me from Sean, I didn't shoot with Lightroom. I didn't say import. They were on my camera roll and Lightroom automatically brought them in. Perfect. But when that happens, whether you shot with your phone, whether you shot with Lightroom's camera, or whether you just did an auto import of whatever was on the camera roll, it does not put them in an album for you. It will sync them. It will back them up. They will be available on your desktop, but they will not be organized in any way. Mary says, "Oh my God, that tip was worth the price of admission." And Steve's saying, there is a method of having the Lightroom camera shortcut on your iPhone. And yes, there is, but it's not the one people are going to go to by default. It just isn't. I've been trying this for years to get people to switch over and use it. I'm with you. I know I use the shortcut too. You can even hold down, you can do a long press or a 3D press on the Lightroom icon to bring up the camera. All kinds of ways to bring up the camera, but nothing's going to stop you from bringing up that default camera because it's the fastest way to do it. So, let me go back to that question before I go too much further that I was going to answer about tethering. Okay, so Irving's asking, will there ever be a way to tether using a camera's built-in Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, like on the D500. My Z6 has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. How come I just can't tether with those? I can give you an answer. It may not be an answer you want to hear, because in order for that to happen, we'd have to invent it. Meaning, our tethering comes as part of the camera manufacturer's SDK, software developer kit. So our tethering comes from Nikon. Our tethering comes from Canon. Our tethering doesn't come from Sony because they don't give it to us. So our tethering comes from the manufacturer in whatever they give us. Now we build our interface around it, but when a new camera comes out, we can't tether to it right away until they put it in their software developer kit. Same thing with wireless tethering. They don't put that in their software developer kit. Now, again, that's the real answer. Could Adobe go out and just build that? Sure. And I wish Adobe would go out and build that. But right now, the answer is we can only use what they give us to use. So until they build wireless tethering into their software developer kit, we don't have access to just turn it on in Lightroom. I wish that weren't the case. I wish they would A, give it to us, or B, we would build it. But today, that's the answer. Okay. Do you prefer to use Lightroom Classic over Lightroom Cloud? Do you use both for different reasons, like showcase photos versus managing photos? And that's probably, Danny, your end of that is probably the best description. I absolutely use Lightroom Classic and prefer Classic today. But because I do work with photos on mobile, I have to use the other version to get photos on mobile and to organize them and do things on mobile. So do I use the Lightroom desktop version, the cloud version? No. Like hardly ever, basically for demonstration and training purposes. I'm in Classic, doing everything in Classic. The only time I would use the desktop version is when there are those instances where I want the full resolution photos imported and backed up. Then I will import them and back them up into the desktop version. But Classic is my main application. Lightroom on mobile is my secondary applications for stuff that I'm about to show you right now. So that hopefully answers that question. All right. Cool. I'm just making sure I haven't missed any questions. And if you're on YouTube, you're not getting your questions answered if you asked any, because I don't see them, because I'm on behance.net/live. All right. So like I said, it auto-imported those photos, but it doesn't know where I want them. It doesn't know how to organize them. It just stuck them in my all photos of 48,631 photos. So I have to now go do that organization. You're probably saying, well, Terry, why do you need to even do that organization? Why do you even care if they're not in an album as long as you can get to them? Because when you want to use those photos from another app, like I use Spark Post all the time for social media posts. So if I go to Spark Post and I go to create a new post, and it gives me the choice right there near the bottom. You want to bring in a photo from Lightroom? Oh yeah, that's where my photos are. I want to use one of those photos Sean took of me at the conference. Well, when I go to Lightroom, it doesn't give me all photos. It only gives me albums. So if I don't put the photos in an album, I will never be able to choose them from another app that can talk to Lightroom. So that's why we want albums. And that's why we use collections on Lightroom Classic. Okay, so let's say I want to go ahead and build that now. So I want to go back over here. I want to go into events, and I want to create a new event, a new album called WPPI. That was the event we were at, 2020. And okay, so now that empty album is at the very bottom on my phone. And it's also going to be on the desktop, and it's also going to be in Classic. It's going to be in that folder it's going to be in a collection set that it creates automatically. So now it's empty. I want to get some photos into it. So I go back to all photos, and I go to my select, and I say, oh, I want all of these, all of those, scroll up, all of these. And that other screenshot is a different kind of screenshot. I don't need that, so I'll skip that. my class banner, pictures from the diversity console or round table. There we go, meeting, there we go. Some pictures of the Mandalay Bay, where it is. Ooh, that's, I don't know what that is. That's not it. Oh yeah, that was outside the same window, and that shot. Okay. So now that I got them all organized or selected, add to at the very bottom on the left. Add to whatever album you want. So that album's in events. It's all the way at the bottom, WPPI. You can only, unfortunately, I wish, it's giving me all these checkboxes. I wish I could add them to multiple albums. Like maybe I want them in WPPI, maybe I want them in portraits, maybe I want them somewhere else. You only get one at a time. So they can be in more than one, but you can only add them to one at a time. All right, that's it. 53 photos have been copied to the WPPI album. And if I were to tap on it and go to it, it takes me there. So here are the 53 photos from that event. Now, if I go back to the desktop and I were to twirl up current work and I would go to the events and I would scroll down, oh, look at that. WPPI now has 53 photos that just popped in. Here they are. So it doesn't matter where I work. I'm getting access to the same stuff, the same organization, the same albums, the same edits. Now, speaking of edits, there is one photo that really, I posted it on my Instagram, and every time I look at it, it drives me crazy because there's one thing I forgot to fix. Because now I can't unsee it every time I look at it. And it's this shot of Mandalay Bay. And it was just in the elevator. It was like perfect angle, like just put my phone up against the glass, took the picture, and I was like, oh my God, I love this shot, and posted it. And I should know better because I always tell people, don't just post stuff out of the phone. If there's something that can be improved, improve it. So here's what's bugging me about that photo. Number one, actually, this is not the photo. Hang on, let me get to the other one. I think it's this one. Yeah, this one. This is the one I posted. You see those three little white dots in the upper corner? Well, those are three lights in the elevator. Driving me insane. Because every time I look at that photo now on Instagram, I see it. So how would I fix that? Had I fixed it first? Well, I could take it into Photoshop. I could wait till I get back to my desktop, take it into Photoshop, or go to my iPad where I got Photoshop on the iPad and use the spot healing brush and get rid of that. But it's Lightroom. Lightroom has a spot removal tool that would work just fine for that. So I'm in the photo already. I'm going to tap on my phone and go to edit. I'm going to scroll over until I see the healing brush at the bottom there. I'm going to tap the healing brush and I can specify the size of it. I can't see the size. Specifying the size, but I don't see it. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell it. Oh, hang on. I'm really screwing that up. Hold on. Hold on. I need to be able to see the size. There we go. There we go. Bigger. All right. Now that I know the size that I want, I'm just going to tap that dot, move it, and use the sky to pick up from. So my three dots are gone. That's it. Now, that was the biggest thing. That was the biggest glaring thing that drove me nuts still to this day. It's not worth deleting the photo, re-uploading it. I want to, but it's not worth it. The other thing that's kind of driving me crazy on this photo, not as much, but just the building. Like if you, especially on the left side, how it's leaning out, on the right side is leaning out, not as much. And that's a perspective issue. You're going to get that when you're not shooting something straight on. So I'm a bit above the building, so it's giving me that. If I were shooting down below it, I'd get it even more. And that's a geometry issue. So if I head over to geometry, I could try an auto upright. And look at that. Look at how it straightened that building out nicely. So just by doing those two things, instead of being in a hurry to post it, I would have had a better looking photo for my Instagram viewers. And it would go back to something. I should practice what I preach. If it came out of the camera, chances are there's something you could do to make it a little better. So those two things would have made this photo a little better. Now, of course, then I can get into just some, subtle things like, for example, maybe I'll go into the profiles, or maybe I won't because I don't want those profiles. Maybe I'll go into the, maybe I'll do an auto adjustment, see what that does to it. And then I can go into the lighting and I can bring up the exposure just a bit more. And then I can go into shadows look good. Everything else looks good here. Then maybe I'll go into color. Since the sun's kind of going down, maybe I want it even to be a little warmer so I can warm it up a little bit more. And I can do those things to this photo before I share it. Now, once I finish editing it and I've done everything I'm going to do to it, and it, of course, once I get out of it, it's going to sync those changes back up to the cloud. Once I've done all that, how would I share it? How would I now put this on Instagram now that I've made my edits? Well, and before we go any further, every photo app on your phone has some editing. Like even the built-in Photos app for my iPhone has some editing, but it doesn't have all the editing that Lightroom has. Doesn't have geometry, doesn't have all those things that let me make this photo really cool. So if I just want to adjust the exposure, could I do it on the phone app? Sure. If I want to just crop it, can I do it on the phone app? Sure. But if I really want to take this photo to the next level, that's where Lightroom comes in. All right, so quickly to share it. When I tap the little share sheet, I get share to. The share to is just like any other app on your phone. If you bring that up, you can share it to a text message, share it to another app, share it to whatever. All of those same features. Maybe you don't want to share it yet. You want to save it to the desktop. Save it to the camera roll. So there's an export to camera roll down further. Last but not least, and this is for my Instagram people coming from their iPhone, I have the ability to open in. And when I do that, it'll let me copy it to Instagram and it will bring it over in its full glory. I can bring it up to my feed and do that and send it to, and then what I should have done in the first place. So the question I see on the screen is, are these raw files? That's exactly what we're going to do in the next couple minutes we have left. This particular one is not a raw file because I shot in a native camera because I was in the elevator and I noticed, oh my God, quick, get it before you move up too high or too low. So I used the native camera, as we always do. So how would I have shot this if I had the time, if I'd taken the time or planned ahead? I would have gone into Lightroom just like I am now, and I would have brought up this camera. And when I bring up this camera, here's my Lightroom pillow over there, I have the option on my phone to shoot in DNG, which is RAW, or JPEG. It depends on your phone. So if you don't have that choice, your hardware doesn't support that. But anyway, I can shoot this pillow as a raw file right now. And I can go auto, click, great. It gives me an auto photo just like I would have gotten with the built-in camera, but it's a better quality because it's the 12 megapixel file that I'm getting from this phone in RAW. Next, I could have also shot it even as an HDR. So I have high dynamic range built into this camera. Professional, where I can go in and adjust the shutter speed, adjust the white balance, adjust everything natively in this camera, like I would on a DSLR. So when I say this is the camera you should be using, it is. I know reality is you won't all the time, but when it matters, when it counts, you should go to this camera because you have more options. All right, so I go to automatic again, and the last thing I'll turn on is I would normally shoot with my rule of thirds on so I can do better composition. There's even a level icon so I can make sure it's level. I get a little haptic feedback when it's level. So you can do all of that in this native camera. I'll just do one more shot with the L up close. There we go. And now when I get out of that camera, it's not in the WPPI collection or album because it's in all photos, because that's where all photos go. Now I would organize those just like we did before and put them, those two Lightroom pillows, in whatever album I want to put them in and share them. If I wanted to just share this to Instagram right now, I don't have to put it in an album. If I want to edit it right now, I could absolutely edit it. I can do a quick auto on it. I can adjust and bring down the highlights of that photo a little bit more. I could bring down the shadows. I think it brightened them up too much when I did the auto. And I can do any spot removal. I can do anything I want to do and adjust this photo. All right. I am out of time. It happens that fast. We will pick up where we left off next week. We will just continue doing more. And we're also going to get into more and more shooting. Because someone asked me, my friend asked me, so it's a photography masterclass. When are you actually going to do some photography? So we're definitely going to do some photography in this class as well. And with that said, I just want to thank everyone for joining me and being here live. And thanks for watching the replay. And Adobe Live's on now. So next up is our daily creative challenge. I don't know what the challenge is this week, but it's happening today after me. And then Paul's up, then Jason, then Howard. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. And I would normally talk about where we're going to be next, but I just came back from where I was going to be next. So right now it's just all about these master classes. All right, cheers, everybody. Go follow my Instagram at Terry Lee White, and you'll see the mistake on that photo, and you can laugh and say, he didn't use the spot removal tool that he talked about. Why didn't he do that on his own photo? And I will be guilty. All right, cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.